Good evening. This is Tom Alexander. Following this introduction, there is the recording of today's live trade room. Today is Friday, August the 1st. There's several really good takeaways from today's trade. Please pay attention to levels, how we establish levels, and how you can identify good trades from the inflection points at those levels. So I hope you all had a great week. I hope you have a good weekend. Much more coming. By the way, please like, please subscribe. Speak with you again soon.
Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, August the 1st. Happy Friday, happy August. It is 9:07 a.m. Eastern Time, and as suggested in last night's pre-market and the special report I sent out, we are going to gap down today. This is additional evidence that a top of some relative significance is in place. We're not too far from potential next level. I'll show that in just a minute. We had payroll number come out, noise, um, now we're a little bit deep in the hole here. Uh, I'm willing to, from a day trade perspective, I'm willing to buy this. I'm willing to sell this. The volatility makes for great opportunity intraday in both directions often. Now, from a swing trade perspective, I told you guys I've been building a short position. I covered a little bit of it yesterday, covered a little bit of it in Globex, but this should just be the beginning of it. And any rally from a swing trade perspective should be sold for a while. My thought is from an auction market structural perspective, that this should be this balance, decline, retracement should include a factor of time that we haven't seen much of in the ramp up from the April low. And you can take advantage of that by, if you're swing trading, by selling rallies until we reach levels and technical extremes and things like that. Now that's I trade different time frames. I trade different instruments. That's a trade for a different time frame and a different instrument than the day trading we focus on in here. Now the levels in here to the downside, again, we're not too far. Well, let's just look. Let me look at a cash. Well, let's look at the futures first. And I'll show you what I'm looking at. Okay, this is here are my futures charts, and this area in here is sort of interesting, and it's cash equivalent. And then this is a ways down, and then over here. So there's farther to go before there's a level. That doesn't mean, obviously, that we don't just V bottom here and retrace deeply into the Globex range. But if we were to get here, it would really be a compelling situation to look for some sort of reversal from a day trading for day trade perspective. Back to the upside, it's, the cash close from yesterday. So until the market opens and begins to trade in that first half hour, and we have intraday trade that we can use as leans, this is about as good as it can be. So we'll see what happens when the cash market opens. We may even have Brett do something. We'll see. Okay, 936, big gap down. As you can see on the right, I have the cash SPX up. Gap and run to the downside. Now we're getting super, super compressed on a short-term basis. That doesn't mean we don't go a lot lower, but there's no trade here, guys. I mean, unless you're just guessing, there's no objective way. There's no trade setup. Okay. If you want to guess, that's fine, but that's what you're doing. whether you go long or you go short. I mean, this thing is super compressed. We're 4 minutes into trading. It's going to be a long day. Stuff will set up. We are not two levels yet in the cash market that we'd want to look at. Let's just do that. Let's look at what those might be. We have to go out in time frame. We go to a 60-minute. Yeah, okay. So here you go on a 60-minute chart. This is an area, and where you can see on this chart, we're in an elevator shaft that extends all the way down to here. So if you want to start buying here, be willing to buy all the way down to here. So that's where we are. Uh, yeah, truly. I mean, there's nothing between here and here. Now that doesn't mean we don't stop anywhere in here. I'm just saying there's no obvious level here to get excited about. Okay, it's 9:50. We've been straight down since the opening. Some good panic going on in here. This is a really important level to watch. I'd be shocked if we just trade straight through this level without a more two-sided trade occurring, uh, even if we're going to go down another 2% today. Okay, I'm guessing this is a capitulation type of thing into this zone in here. Uh, there's no graceful way to trade this. You certainly don't want to short it here. Uh, this is such an outlier, downsized, compressed move. But then, do you buy it? I think you probably the better part of valor here, unless you're just willing to really take some heat, is to let it set up. Again, it's 10 o'clock. Okay, now I know some of you, Ron in particular, I know can use a 1 minute chart. If you're a really facile trader, you can scalp this thing on a 1 minute chart in here. And I'm scalping it from the long side, full disclosure. When I say scalp, I mean these you're having 8, 9 handle moves in a minute or less. Now, the danger here is that, we're in some sort of lock limit down. It's going to crater, but that's the risk you assume. As a trader, you have to make an assumption and I have a plan, willing to accept the risk. So that's what I'm doing. I am trading this from the long side, scalping it at the moment, in and out, frankly, but from the long side. Okay, I am now flat. Uh, I'll let this thing settle in. There's a good chance. Well, there's a reasonable chance we've seen close to the low of the day. We're into an important area on the cash chart that we talked about. Now, to the upside, it's a guess. This thing is so compressed to the downside, and we know how this works. Uh, so I'm gonna sort of stand aside here, but I'd still be willing to buy near these lows. Uh, because we're so, we've had 2 days straight down. And I realize we're coming off of just a ridiculous move to the upside, but you know how this thing works. And so I'll trade the intraday auction as I think it's going to be. Uh, so far, that's working out pretty well for me. So, Okay, it is 10:26. This is another example of panic is seldom rewarded. You had the panic to the downside, and now those people are getting crushed. This is not a great place to buy. You're back at a point here where is this thing going to go 50 handles higher? So you go back and test the low. So there's no to me, there's no good reward risk in here because we went straight down into the upper cusp of an important level. Now we're going straight back up. Uh, and again, we're not even an hour into the day. So if you're not in a position here, that's probably the position you want to be in, frankly. It's right now it's a coin flip from a day trade perspective where the best trade is. Again, I would be inclined to be a buyer on a test to these lows. Uh, unless we're just going to crash, which is always the improbable event. Uh, we're compressed down here on, this time frame. Now, from an intermediate term basis, this is way overdue, but some digestion in here is not, is probably is the higher probability condition. Okay, couple of things here, guys. Mike says Bitcoin looks trying to go initiative. Pay attention to that. You guys trading Bitcoin. I may have to start that. Deval says, hi, Tom. In current uncertain, volatile market conditions, how do we make sure that we don't fade away that process? I don't know I don't really understand what you're saying. In recent conditions, price action hasn't been respected and sometimes failed the thesis too. Well, I would disagree with that. I think the price action has been pretty consistent. I mean, look at today. It was certainly initiative lower. We got down. We had a trend lower into the level identified before we opened. Actually, it was identified in last night's report. And you had now, and again, this gets into really understanding price action, okay? For lack of a better word. Now, how do you know? How did you know? How could you have known that this last bar here that I'm pointing to on the cash chart was a place to buy as opposed to this bar or this bar or this bar? Well, you don't. It's sort of an educated guess, but it spiked down into a level. And then it closed. It was a wide range bar, sort of a panic bar that closed near its upper extreme. So to me, and I was already long, but I added, to me, this was saying, okay, we're not going to go lock limit down. We're going to form some sort of balance. So I'm again, some of the stuff that I do, and I admit this, I've been staring at a screen. I have literally been staring at a screen. I'm not making this up for 40 years. So there are some things that I do that I know to do, I just react to. But when I go back in hindsight, I think I'm pretty consistent and I think I'm pretty objective. Uh, anyone that trades should only trade within their comfort level with what they see. And if, something will always set up. I said that very early. I mean, right now we're an hour and 6 minutes into trade. So if you want to let structure form, have more intraday pivots and let things calm down, that's a perfectly acceptable a way to trade. I just thought this was a great opportunity, and sometimes I'm wrong. This time I was right. Now I don't really know what to do. I'd be a little bit nervous being long, I'd be a little bit nervous being short. Uh, but no, I disagree that the market has failed the auction market thesis lately. Totally disagree with that. Now, if you want to expound on that, what you mean, I'm happy to address it. But uh, I disagree with that. Okay, 10:54. It's already been a long day, right? Uh, Now we have an upper level. Here it is on the futures. Here it is on the cash. All right. So if we get up here, might be a sell. It is an inflection point. Okay, it's 11:41. And here is the SPX breadth chart. You can see breadth refuses to really collapse. We got the most negative it's been today. It's about negative 1400, which is about the same level as it was the day before yesterday. And then we had a furious bounce up into this top. But there's nothing extreme here, really. Now, in a bull trend, this is, your own alert for a buy. And maybe this is a buy. We've come down into, you can see this zone here. We hit the upper cusp of this zone that includes these buying tails here, basically. So now, do I want to go all in buying this? No, I don't. I'm just pointing this out just to be alert. You don't want to be caught short much above today's session high, if any, because you get above today's cash session high and this thing could accelerate. You're in an elevator shaft back to the upside all the way to yesterday's cash close. So you don't want that to happen. Now and again, this is a 30-minute chart. So here's this little pivot that we see on the 5-minute charts that held this bounce off this low. Now there's a buying tail in here too. So all of these things need to be considered contextually when you're making trades. I'm flat. Okay, 11:50. I missed a really good trade setup here. Now it's not as clear on a 5-minute chart. We go to a 1-minute chart. Very nice. I missed this. Balance area. I look like a charm. You don't have to catch them all. And this is one I did not catch. But, I think hopefully you see over and over how these balance areas can give you a defined trade. So if you break out here, a very loose stop is back to here. And typically, if it's going to work, it works immediately. So a lot of times I won't give it to back to here. I'll give it to the midpoint of the range. And most of the time, that's more than enough. Sometimes it gets stopped because the balance area isn't complete or it morphs into a more complex structure, all of that stuff. But these balance areas heed paying attention to. Okay, speaking of balance areas, here we are again. Now this is a balance area at a significant intraday inflection point. If we get above here, you're in an elevator shaft to the upside, and this thing could really squeeze if we get above this level. Everybody and their brother is looking at this. Okay, we are rotating back down to this level right here. Below here, the next level is the lows. Now, will we get to the lows? I don't know, but that's the next level to keep an eye on. Are we going to go straight through the lows? I sort of doubt it. Formed a balance area up here. You can see it on the 1 minute chart right here. And then it broke down, started making lower lows and lower highs. And here we are. So I would be cautiously looking to buy somewhere in here. Now, you don't want to get run over by a freight train. You want it to set up, you want some sort of trigger. But unless we're just going to crater and lock limit down, we're probably going to get at least some initial pushback from this area, tradable pushback. Okay, you got to be careful in this area. I'm inclined to want to buy this, but you've got to be alert because there's going to be 7 skillion stops in here. So if they get it going to the downside, you could have one of these big swooshes and one of these wide range bars. You don't want to get run over by that. So just be aware of that. It's 1:20 p.m. I sort of thinking that they'll jerk it away from this area before they get too far below this, if they even get to this. But there's always that possibility that you get that wide range swoosh to the downside. Just a heads up. Okay, the big wide range bar is coming. Just don't know if it's going to be up or down in here. Okay, this area right here is going to be an area to keep an eye on. If we get above here, this thing, there's a lot of real estate up here back towards this extreme here. Okay, if you're long, this trade has potential back up into today's highs, at least back up into this area. See where this moving average is, see where this here or even higher. I mean, could be, let's see if I can do this up in here. That there's potential for here. Or, we just do one of these things where the range continues to narrow like this. That's a real possibility too, where you have this thing where it goes up in here and then it stops and then it comes down and it does this number and drives longs and shorts insane. Okay, it is 2:01. We're super compressed down here in this area. You can see there's balance in here. A lot of back and forth between buyers and sellers. Could be a really sharp move out of this area. So just be alert here, either way, or both ways, frankly. Okay, now it gets interesting. They've run the lows of the day. Are they going to hammer this thing? If they get it above here, probably just a giant stop grab, and they're going to scream it the other way. So, major, 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 major conditional inflection point here. Okay, if we get through here, this thing is probably just going to scream higher. This was a major, major inflection point. Let me show you on the daily chart. We were on the cusp of truly heading into the abyss. Here are the futures charts. Now, we're right at this critical level from on the cash charts, but you can see it on the futures charts here. If we'd gotten through here, there's just it, it could really have been interesting. Now, all the people that were betting that way are getting run over. So now the fuel to the downside is flaming the fires to the upside. That's the way this works. Okay, if you got long down in here, you trail your stop. Uh, this is people getting squeezed that thought this was going to zero here, and at this point it could have gone to zero, but it didn't. Uh, Now this is a this area up in here is a legitimate target. However, we this is the gift horse. If you got long down here, you've had a nice trade. Don't give a lot of it back. Take a partial profit, trail a tight stop on at least part of your position. All of these things come into play. Strategy and tactics are grossly underrated in terms of the level of trader you are and how profitable you are. Strategy and tactics can overcome a lot. But if you have bad strategy and tactics, not much can help you, frankly. So that's a very, very, very underrated part of trading. You can flip a coin and with good strategy and tactics, kill it. So we're in the phase here of this rally where strategy and tactics matter. Now, would I be selling this? No way in hell. Uh, there's no good entry here. If you're not in this now, you got to be flat. There's no reason to do this. This is not an inflection point. This area was 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 an inflection point. Uh, you don't take trades in the middle of nowhere just because you don't have a position.
Okay, it is 3:12 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, August 1st. Let's talk about some things. Let's look at some things. Really interesting stuff here. Okay, here are the futures charts. Okay, and we'll look at the cash in just a minute. But I want you to notice if you look at this chart, you say, "Oh wow, look how much money was left on the table today. Look at this range." Well, consider the time frame you're trading. Now, if you are a swing trader, position trader, yeah, if you're short, if you came in short today, you did really, really well. But from a day trade perspective, what did we really have to work with today? What was the auction that we were actually trading? It wasn't this. It wasn't this bar. It was this, okay? And this is a very different structure, right? The range of the day session today, what is the range of the day session today? That's a pretty big range, 1%. The bar that I showed before, 2%. So the day session range is half as much as from last night's close to today's session low. But if you look at this, it's not like this was a straight line. I mean, this has been sort of choppy. And you really had to understand the auctioning, and then you had to go inside of this, get more granular from a day trade perspective. So let's look at this. Let's look at this view. And if we look at this view, now this is the cash chart, but its futures is identical. I think you guys know that. And so we opened here and went straight down. Could you have shorted this? Absolutely. That's great. Could you have shorted, there's a crowd out there that wants to short or buy the extreme of the first 15 minutes. That's fine. That would have worked if you were really quick. But then the market came into this critical level here. And to me, this was sort of a make or break situation. You had this reversal bar. This was an opportunity. And then we bounced here. It's sort of in the middle of nowhere, came down, and then this formed a balance area. This was an opportunity. And then when we came down on here, this to me was maybe the most defined and best opportunity of the day. At this point, in this general area, we were going to go to zero or rally. And we had the head fake, took this out by a little bit, and then we had the giant bungee jump. So if you just look at the daily bar, it's a very different picture than if you're looking at the chart on a 30-minute time frame or a 5-minute time frame or below. So there was opportunity today if you were patient and if you traded around the major inflection points that the market formed and the balance areas. I mean, this was a trade. I missed this. This was a good trade on the 1-minute chart. This set up really nicely. I missed this trade. This was a nice trade here. And then this was interesting because, and this is typical, the market could absolutely have screamed higher out of this. And I think the reason this is so choppy and wide range, you had people on both sides of this. You had the people that were waiting for a spike below this level, were trying to get short, and you had the people that were trying to get in early, and they all got chopped around. And then you had the big flush, the dramatic flush that stopped on a dime, ran these lows, and then we bungee jumped higher. And now this had the potential to trade back up into here, but you don't know. You didn't know. So the best way to manage this trade was to trail your stop, as I said. And could you have shorted this? Yeah, I mean, good for you. If you shorted this, good for you. That's a trade I'm going to miss 99 times out of 100 because it's in the middle of nowhere. Plus, I was long, so but I got stopped out. I was trying to stop and got stopped out. Now we're forming another balance area. It's 3:15. I'm pretty much done for the day as far as trading is concerned. I'm not going anywhere. So I will let you know before I take off. I may take off a few minutes early, but that's sort of the recap. As a matter of fact, while we're here, let's just look. Let's look over here at the cash indices. What do we see here? Okay, this is interesting. I'll take a look. Okay, this is the NDX. And I think this was from the special report I did last night, or maybe it was from the review I did yesterday afternoon. I don't remember. But you can see I had highlighted that we'd be down another 1% to get to this level. Well, we gapped into it. And then we traded right into the next level, and that's where we've stopped. Now we're down. This is the biggest drop we've had in a couple of months, I think. Since, let's see, what was this? Probably similar. Yeah, this is close. And then, of course, you had this was I don't really count this, but this was the big drop, the biggest drop as we were coming off of this April compressed low. So now we're in here. We've got this giant gap. We're into a really important level. I wouldn't be too surprised if we don't chop and churn around in here and build balance before we make the next move. Below this area in here, there is not much. And then let's look at the SPX. This is we gapped below this level, gapped into, and then traded into this just above this level. And we are down how much from print low? 3.4%. That's still not a very big drop. Now, could we go right back up from here? Could. But again, I'm not, that's what we've done since the April low. We've had a retracement, immediately bungee jump back up within a couple of days of new highs in every single instance. We'll see if it's different this time. If it's different this time, maybe we trade up, maybe we even close the gap, and then we go lower. So interesting times. I do think this has the potential to be the most significant top that we've seen since way back over here earlier this year. All right, let's look at the other indices while we're here. The Dow, the Dow is really in an elevator shaft. Equal weight. This is a weekly chart. They've just torn this up. The Russell, I'm sure. Let's see, where's the Russell? Yep. And let's see, the New York Composite. God, New York Composite has just been straight down. It's just as basically the inverted V top. All right, let's look at the internals. 10-day, 5-day have rolled over, but nowhere near a downside extreme. Breadth is only negative 1,000. That's nothing. You'd like to see before a low is formed or as a low is formed, some sort of capitulation that would include a negative 2,000 closing breadth reading.
VIX, I'm sure spiked today. Yep, it did. VIX is above 20. This is the highest it's been since what is this? Mid-June. So 6 weeks. And that's where we are as we head into the last 38 minutes of trade. Okay, guys, it is 4:01 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, August 1st. The cash market is closed, and it was an interesting day. We'll see. I'll have a full report out uh, over the weekend. You guys have a good weekend. I will see you all on Monday morning.